Hello and welcome to the latest episode of my Horror 101 series. This one is about not giving too much away. And it's related to the last video that was about mystery and of course the unknown and doubt and all that good stuff. It's all about controlling information. As I've kind of harped on about through these videos, a lot of horror, when you're creating a horror game or a story or movie or something, it's all about controlling information. And that includes all sorts of different things. Like in Indiana Jones, the first one, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. My brain just kind of went, blah, blah, blah. The Last Crusade, no, that's the third one. Temple of Doom, that's the second one. What's the first one? Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay. At the very beginning of the movie, there's one of the classic lines. He reveals that has a phobia with snakes. Indiana Jones does. So, subconsciously, we know at some point later on in the movie he's going to end up having to deal with snakes. It's supposed to just be a throwaway line, but it's there, it's information. Now we know that he has a phobia to dealing with snakes. It's just like in horror. If you have, I don't know how many times watching movies or, watching people play through horror games and stuff, there's just always these little slips of information it's setting up the fact that somebody's afraid of something or hates something or, just these little things. And it's supposed to be casual, toss away, but it always is going to at least subconsciously set up the fact that, okay, that's going to come up at some point. Now we know that they hate spiders, they're afraid of spiders, so they're going to have to deal with spiders at some point. And that it's giving away information that isn't really necessary. Because one of the things a lot of people, when they're doing horror fiction and games and stuff, seem to forget is that the characters don't know they're in a piece of horror fiction. In fact, that goes for every kind of fiction possible. People in a sci-fi movie, to them, that world is normal. That's how they should play it. When they're in a sci-fi world, it should be normal. That's one of the things that works so well about Alien. For one thing, he did it as a haunted house in space. It's just it happened to be an alien instead of a ghost that was killing them and scaring the fuck out of them. But what made it work so well is that it's the way the characters work with all the equipment and stuff as if it's just part of their everyday lives, because it is. It's their normal. I talked about realism and how there's a difference between normal and just being realistic. What to us is highly unrealistic and probably even impossible because of physics and whatnot could be completely normal in fiction to the characters in a fictional world. Especially in something like fantasy or sci-fi. At least what would be considered those types of settings. A setting with magic and stuff is kind of a fantasy setting. Broadly speaking, and sci-fi is anything that has technology that doesn't actually exist yet. Or is only theoretical or is even impossible. From what we know now. It's entirely possible that the things they think are impossible now are actually possible. They just haven't figured out how to do it yet. So, that's something you should always keep in mind, is that the characters should never know what kind of story they're in. Whatever setting you choose to use, to the characters, it's normal. That's their normal world. They live in that world. They've grown up in that world. All their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents and all the rest of their ancestors have lived in that world. There's nothing weird about that world to them. They understand it. Okay? And that does, of course, always raise the complications if you have to help the audience understand the world that the story is taking place in, and why horror tends to take place in the real world. Or at least a version of the real world, because we already understand the real world. Reality as we understand it and have experienced it. Most of the time horror takes place here because we understand it already. There is no addition to it. But again, what makes Alien, they didn't need a whole lot of exposition to explain shit away in Alien, because it wasn't, it really didn't matter the things that we didn't understand because we weren't familiar with it. It was the fact that the characters treat it as if it's just part of their everyday lives. They act, how they act in regards to everything is the important part. That's why I'm a stickler for human behavior in movies and books and stuff, because we understand human behavior pretty much at all times. That's what makes crazy people kind of scary, is because they've gone beyond what we understand in terms of human behavior. Okay, but for the most part, people behave in predictable ways and patterns to various stimulation. Okay, when people are around things that they are around all the time anyway, and that they fully understand, they don't treat it with any awe or sense of wonder. It's a tool. It's a nifty little thing that they use. Okay, and they don't call attention to it. So that's a problem that some, like Star Trek occasionally had, is that, the people coming up with all the gadgets, and like James Bond, sometimes, they get so into, being proud of themselves for being so clever to come up with these gadgets that they want to spend a lot of time on the gadgets. And the problem with that is that the characters wouldn't. A character that picks up a tricorder or whatever in Star Trek or whatever is going to know what the thing is. They're going to have used one before. Probably hundreds, if not thousands, maybe tens of thousands of times they've used one of these things. It's not going to be fascinating to them. So spending a bunch of time, look at the nifty little gadget, just for the sake of trying to get the audience to go, look at the nifty little gadget, it wouldn't happen. A character in a story is not going to react that way. So the same thing applies to any kind of fiction you're wanting to do, be it horror, sci-fi, fantasy, hard-boiled detective, it doesn't matter. Whatever the setting is, the characters in that setting are familiar with it. They do not know they're in a story. They should never be treated as if they know they're in a story, unless it's being told from their perspective and they are relating it to somebody. In that case, they are telling their story, and they know the only reason they know they're in a story is because they're the one telling it. Okay? But for the most part, if you're doing just like movies and games and stuff, they do not know they're in a story. So if there is no reason for a piece of information to be given to the audience, don't give it to them. Getting back to point here, well, I was always on point. I'm just getting kind of a squirrely path to it, or around it and through it. Okay, so like in Indiana Jones, there's no real reason to reveal that he hates snakes early on. What they're doing there is giving the audience the ability to go when they see the snakes first, because they're like, oh no, he hates snakes, so now he's going to have to deal with all these snakes, oh my god. Instead of just waiting until that moment to reveal the fact, oh fuck, I hate snakes. Or, the classic line, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Because his attitude in that moment tells you everything you need to know about how he feels about snakes. And then the rest of it can play out as usual. I don't get why they felt the need to give you that piece of information so early in the movie. Just to get you to go, snakes, he hates snakes. When you can go ahead and, experience it with him rather than having that audience reaction. But it's not a horror movie, and it is true that the audience likes to be in on stuff. I'm not going to deny that. When you're watching a movie, sometimes it's nice to be aware of things that the characters aren't aware of. That's part of being the audience. A lot of watching a horror movie, in fact, is being aware of things that the characters in the movie aren't aware of. Okay, so it depends on how you want to play it. Do you want to tweak the nose of the audience and give them a bit of information, let them know that something bad is going to happen, like with the music? Because the characters in the movie don't hear the music, only the audience hears the music. So it's an auditory clue that something bad is about to happen. So they know, oh no, the violins are trilling again. That means something horrible is about to happen. No, don't go in there. And something horrible happens. But it's easy. It's been done way too many times. It's become cliche. But that doesn't, again, there is no necessarily right or wrong way to do horror. I'm just giving you my views and kind of talking about the subject, because it's a subject that interests me. But really, to me, I'm a fan of the characters, the audience and the characters kind of going through it together. I kind of feel like that's the better way to do horror, especially. I kind of don't feel that way about any story. But, especially when it comes to horror, I kind of like the idea, and it appeals to me more when you're not given any more information than the characters are. So you have to go through it with them. And you're just as clueless and in the dark and afraid as they are, hopefully, because nothing's been given away. You haven't been given any more information than the characters have. I like the idea of keeping music to where it's just there to be creepy, not to actually clue the audience into anything. Because then, I don't want them to see it coming. See what I'm saying? So, really, I don't think there's much of anything else to say about this. You may not agree with me, but I kind of feel like the best way to do horror is to not give too much away. So I think I'll go ahead and wrap this one up here and do my usual YouTube stuff. So, thank you for watching. I appreciate your viewership. Please give me the upvote on the video if you want to. It's always appreciated as well. Leave any comments you have about the video, any questions you have about this topic, and I'll try my best to answer them. If you have any other horror-based topics that you'd like me to cover, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'm doing kind of a 13 days leading up to Halloween for this particular part of the series, but I will get to your suggestions after the holiday, and of course whenever you happen to watch this down the road. If it's at all possible, I'll do my best to cover your suggestions. Please keep negativity to yourself and off of my comment boards, because there's really no place for it here. This is about entertainment and education and discussing and exploring an interesting topic, horror fiction, and I don't really want people just being assholes on the comments. Now, if you would like to discuss something that you feel I'm incorrect about, then that's fine, but don't be a dick, basically. And, of course, that brings me to trolls. I really hate trolls, and if you try and fuck with me, I will fuck with you even harder right back. Okay, I'm not an easy mark. Try me at your own risk. Okay? So, more positively, go ahead, and if you have not subscribed yet, you need to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you know when I upload new videos and don't have to keep checking back all the time. Alright, I do a variety of different things, different kinds of videos, but the only way you'll know if one that you're interested in watching has come up is if you subscribe, so you know when I put new ones up. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I will go ahead and add on this video, it would be nice if you would come check out my website, acidbathproductions.biz. There will be a link in the description to my website. It's a forum. I always appreciate having more people on there to talk to. That sounded kind of needy. But, yeah, it's a forum. It's there for people to have discussions on, and more people the merrier. So come check out the site and have some discussions with me and other people. And I think that wraps it up. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.